Good morning, Hawaii, and welcome to Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 2, Episode 4, Among the Lotus Eaters, which I still want to say Picard. I don't know why. But yes, it was in fact very much like how I remember the Greek myth of the Lotus Eaters from, of course, Percy Jackson. I don't think we did that one in school. Where, yes, I would say this was another one of what I think we're gonna call now. I really should have moved my keyboard. Hang on, because that's just gonna clang against the mic. What I think we can now safely call kind of the middle ground for Season 2. Move my keyboard, instantly need to hit a button. There we go. Yeah, because again, that was a very solid story. I don't think, off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure it doesn't contradict anything from TOS, which is an absolute miracle from Strange New Worlds. What are you looking at me for?
You looked at me.
No. But, yeah, it was a very solid story. I'm just going to get it off my chest now. Have you ever had it where, you know, in a show or, I don't know, some work of fiction, some story, you know, very broadly, where, you know, there's one little thing that keeps kind of gnawing at you, and you just can't get it off your mind. It kind of ruins the experience. You're like, that's not right. That doesn't make sense. You know, what happens every now and then. Let's find him, Mr. Spock. Reading is an implicit skill. I don't understand why Spock can't, why no one can read the tables, because reading's an implicit skill. Actually did some research on this a bit beforehand, and one of the, just to make sure it actually was an implicit skill, like it seemed it should be, and one of the sources I found, the first one in Google, if you were a writer, I don't know, trying to look this up, was actually suggesting that humans might be born with implicit kind of understandings of a writing system and the structure involved by first grade, before even any formal teaching has happened. Like, it's so implicit it might actually be built into our DNA in some sense after so long of having writing. Which did seriously detract from pretty much everything after the moment Spock said, I think it's on this tablet, but I can't read it. The ending, though, I was forgetting about that for some of these scenes. But there we go. We've got it out of the way. We're no longer going to talk about how implementing... Like, why even write the thing about the data pads? Like, just say no one thought of it. You could have a joke at the end of episodes. Like, we really should have written this stuff down. And then Spock's like, I had not thought of that. Like, I don't know. But, you know, this was a... Maybe for the first time, definitely very, very rare in the modern era, other than, like, the temporal therapist thing I invented after last week's episode, it really kind of made me think. Like, it was a very interesting scenario that they did explore a decent amount. Again, I kind of want... Well, that's unfair. I'm going to say I want Stranger Worlds to kind of have the focus be the interesting scenario. I feel like some of the Orville episodes did that, like the one that explored a true democracy. But the one about the prejudice, the court case episode, that was the focus of the episode, so maybe that was a bit harsh. But there were a lot, sometimes it doesn't necessarily have to be about the interesting concepts, because you'll be thinking about it yourself. Like, the episode can drive points of discussion, but you could also come up with them if the concept is good enough. In a society in which you can only retain explicit memories from, like, the past day, from daytime, it's a fascinating concept. One in which there's a ruling class that does get to maintain their memories. Also, like, there's just so much to build off of. I like that the society has this kind of I'm sorry, let's change it from a picture of Pike beating somebody up. Um, let's use a different picture. I like it that... completely lost my train of thought. Yeah, that this society had kind of built up how the forgetting was a good thing, and how it benefited them, either because like the ruling class manipulated it or they just did that because that's how the world works. It felt very natural. It felt very like what humanity can do. It's very hard to see it within your own culture because, you know, that's just how the world works. But the one I akin it to is death, and how a lot of people and cultures, I mean, pretty much universally, because it's a universal concept among all cultures, will try and rationalize death in a finite existence is not only a good thing, but like pretty much necessary for anyone to survive. That anything other than the like lifespan that we have would be some sort of cruel hell that's completely unfathomable. And it's like, well, no, like it's absurd. It's ridiculous. Like, I won't get into that argument too much now, but because it's beside the point. But it really felt like not only a mixture of that, but like at times maybe they're right. Like there are times like that. The one I want to get into, and then Jack Sly will get to your comment. It's a little hard to argue because it's kind of contradictory, which is okay if you have like a cultural belief, because often they can be contradictory. But this guy was talking about how the forgetting, you keep what's like really matters, those strong emotions, but you lose like the anguish, the guilt. You lose a lot of what would come from having explicit memories. Biographical memories, I think it is still explicit memories. But then, like, the very next scene, he talks about how he still has the pain from the loss he doesn't know he suffered. I don't really understand what he gains by not having the memories. He's like, will it make it better? I mean, I think it might. At least you'd have something else to think about for a little bit if you're going to have the pain. But then when he actually get those memory backs, it clearly does affect him more. So it's a little hard to analyze this case. But, like, philosophically, from the very first part, if we assume that just he doesn't have the pain because he doesn't have the memories, like, maybe I can't say he's wrong. I mean, it's a belief. Like, it's a very interesting concept that I would have liked the episode to explore further and be like, what would that be like? Is that actually better? Is that worthwhile? And they do bring up points. The doctor's like, I would rather keep my pain if it means I can heal people. Like, your society is very much going to struggle to progress if it can't retain knowledge. Like, that might be the most important thing in development, is retaining knowledge. But there were plenty of very interesting concepts that I enjoyed chewing on throughout this episode. Orville was the worst and racist, more messed up than so many people could not see it unless pointed out to them. I have only seen season 1 of the Orville. I don't recall, and honestly, it's a little hazy. But yeah, I don't recall anything like that. I don't know if we want to spin off into an Orville discussion. I might. It looks like there's going to be a big gap in Star Treks. I might go back to the Orville and do this sort of thing for that. Because it's very Star Trek adjacent. But yeah, another thing I really liked was I think it did disorientation a lot better than other episodes of the modern era, because the old shows never really seemed to struggle with that as much. Not Star Trek, just generally. But it wasn't as much of a focus of this episode, so it is more subdued. But the sort of ringing, like sharp cuts where we don't see the middle bit, which was also a pretty clever transition. Like, you need them to walk to town, well, you could use that as your transition and have it be disorienting. Like, it was disorienting enough, but it didn't take me out of the episode, which is the problem of so much. Now that we have, like, CGI and we can do a lot more with even just cameras and directing, I've said before, I find things like Discovery, first episode of season 3, where they drug Burnham with that truth serum, and it's supposed to be disorienting. It entirely takes me out, because I'm like, oh, I'm watching a show, and I don't like how you're, I don't know, filming it, warping it, whatever. But this kept me in it. Of course, in the meta sense, the fact that I was still in the show made me think about how I was still in the show, and it was a good distortion effect, disorientation, but what are you gonna do? I also liked... Yeah, here's what I can do it in. Alex and I were watching more TNG over the weekend, and what's it actually called? It's the one where Riker, like, gets an old stargazer, and there's the battle situation. It's the second to last episode of season 2. There we go. The name of it. The Stratagem guy? Do you remember the name of that one? Strategy or something?
Stratagem.
It's the Stratagem. I think that's right. Where it's like a battle simulation between the Enterprise and an old Constellation class. Did I call it a Stargazer? Oof. But anyway, there's a line.
That's why I tuned in, as you said Stargazer.
There's a line where the Zakdorn. Yes, I remember Zakdorn, but not the name of the episode. Like, he doesn't really like Riker, and he has a line in the ready room where Capcom's like, what the hell is your problem with Riker? And it made me realize, when I talk about unprofessionalism in the modern show, that I knew that's not quite what I meant, and I finally realized that's what it is. Because Riker, you could say, is very unprofessional in most of what he does, but the Zakdorn specifically...
He bangs everything in sight when he gets on a new planet that if it has boobs.
I'd really give that scene a watch if you get it when you get a chance. I think it's like midway through the episode. But the key thing was, he said Riker isn't taking this simulation seriously. And a lot of other things. But then we realized that's the problem, because I don't mind if the crew is having fun, especially this sort of like Pike thing. Discovery does it, TNG does it, where the crew are very familial, they have fun, they poke around at each other. That goes back to the old shows. But the problem I think modern Star Trek is having, which is probably it's getting from Marvel, is that they don't stop that when it becomes serious. So Riker... You know, he'll be joking around, he'll be doing, like, jazz and whatever, except for the lower decks gag, where he's, like, the I love my job scene. Riker, like, the moment he, like, things become serious, there's actual danger, he's got, like, one of the most serious faces there is. Like, he's one of the most serious, down-to-business people, like, maybe even more so than Picard. Maybe the contrast makes it seem more, but like Riker will be like, no, this is serious time. This is not joke time. And I think this did a great job of showing, there was a reason I'm pausing on this scene, where they're talking about, like, yeah, they know the stakes. Like, Leon should not be out here. But it's like, yeah, we really do need to continue. And there's the big, long discussion of, like, unless we absolutely need to go back, there's the captain just really trying to make the decisions, like, everyone here is professional when it matters, and this is the one scene I'm highlighting, but I think this whole episode pretty much did a good job at that. Maybe Ortega's is still a bit Tom Paris, we'll say, but you could argue she's also in a much less serious position. Jack Saw, the episode was hard for me to watch, like it was talking to me directly. I'm curious if you could mean in what sense. Like, I assume you don't mean that the characters were literally talking to you, and more the messages and the themes were kind of being spoken to you rather than shown to you and naturally explored. Which I might critique this episode on. It's entering, I think, the realm of being contrived, how thematically appropriate the events of Rigel 7 are to what is going on in so many different aspects. Like, there's Pike and his relationship. There's the thing that guides lost sailors home. There's Ortega's whole thing about feeling like she doesn't get to do all the fun stuff because she flies the ship. There's... I mean, you've brought the Doctor and Leon, the two characters who... The only two characters who could probably benefit from forgetting their past and might actually enjoy that. Then you've got Pike is the contrast. I mean, I guess Pike has to be there, but it's like, this is a little too thematically appropriate. I'm okay with, like, doing stuff like that, of course. Like, you need a theme for a story. But I think it was so much that you could almost see where it's going. Like, when the guy showed us his little markings, he's like, I've marked these out. I've inked these out. I don't remember why. I'm like, oh, so he's going to give the whole planet their memories back, is what I'm hearing. Because that guy's not going to go with him to get his memories back, so it has to be the whole planet. He's going to go there, do something, and give everyone their memories back. That's not what happened, because it turns out that guy was willing to go get his memories back. But, I mean, he did... We'll get to that conclusion of giving everyone's memories back later. But, it was maybe just a little too, I guess, heavy-handed is the word. Like, maybe it could be a bit more subtle, or... Maybe you can't divide this out because you do only have 10 episodes. But yeah, I don't know. It didn't seriously detract from the episode, but I think it could have been maybe just a little more subtle in places. I also really like, this guy was a great character to also explore these ideas I've been talking about kind of only having today, where I suspect if I were to go, like, see other people's reviews of this episode, I imagine I would see a fair amount of people say that this guy was too quick to change his mind, and basically he did whatever the plot needed him to do, and they would cite that as a bad thing about the episode. I disagree. He did do whatever the plot needed him to do, but it was because, I mean, fundamentally, that's what everybody does. But it was natural, because I think what those people might be forgetting is this is someone who only has today. That's all he has. The consequences for his actions are extremely minimal. I mean, they can happen. If he breaks a leg, I mean, he's still going to hurt tomorrow. If he dies, which is theoretically possible, you know, he's... Do you need executions in this society? Huh. I don't know, because... See, what's criminal justice is in a society where you can only remember one day. I guess we saw it was locking them in the cages, but you would never need to execute someone. Probably. But I don't even know if you get the motive for serious crime. Okay, we're sidetracking here. But, I mean, he talks a lot about how, like, emotions are everything. I mean, that's your only tie to any kind of continuity. And if you only ever had today, you're incapable of long-term planning. The longest you could ever plan for is tonight. Like, if we're saying it's like Earth, maybe like 12, not even 12 hours. If we're saying it's just like daytime is when you keep your memories, like, we see them near sunset and sunrise. They're still hazy. Like, maybe 8 hours a day. That's the longest you could plan. Yeah, you're gonna be really, like, flip-floppy about your decisions. It shouldn't take much to convince you. And you always kind of have to say, right now, what's the best thing I can do? And I like that this guy is very back and forth. Like, he's just like, yeah, this seems like a good idea right now. He's like, this clearly, your emotions are telling you to do this, so it must be right. because I don't have any emotions here. I certainly don't have any facts that I can put to the situation. The only source of guidance I have is Pike feels this is right. Therefore, this is probably right. So I think a lot of the society was really well done. I also don't know if I mentioned it, but Rigel 7 is the episode, is the planet from The Cage. Not Talos 5? Talos 4? But the mission they went to right before Talos, where, I mean, Google it. You'll see the picture and probably recognize it. Where, something... I hope they say something went horribly wrong, because otherwise they did contradict a Strange New World TOS episode. But, yeah, I assume they... No, hang on, it is a contradiction. I've been giving them the benefit of the doubt that the palace, I don't know if I'm going to get a picture of it up, that we see here is just a different palace, because, the society is, it's a Bronze Age society. Presumably, they do not all live around this one palace. In the Bronze Age of Earth, you had Egypt, Greece, I don't remember who early Turkey was. Mesopotamia, maybe? But, we got around. We weren't just one city. And, no, Bronze Age, we were pretty much everywhere, I think. Don't know what the Americas were up to. But anyway, if this guy, Lucas, Kevin, he had a weird name that was kind of like a normal name. If this guy was abandoned on that away mission, he would probably have been close to that original palace, which suggests this might supposed to be the same place, which for a few years would seem like a contradiction. But, you could still give it a benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's a nearby palace. Maybe he walked some gargantuan journey to find a place he could actually take over. I don't know. But, all right, let's start getting into some scene-by-scene stuff. I did enjoy how the episode needs to communicate that a lot of time has passed between her getting the call and the next cut. And normally you do that by, it becomes night. It's dinner time, the sun had set, that's how you do it. But we're in space, so they can't do that. So what they do is they just turn the lights down. Which I did enjoy. That's we need to show that time passed. How do we do it? What if the lights are much darker as if it's night? 10 seconds between cuts? Shut up, Jim. The audience isn't gonna notice. I did enjoy that. But yeah, I don't know if I have too much to say on this relationship. I'm honestly not too invested in it because, kind of the point of the relationship is they barely see each other. But I guess Pike has to cook in every episode. Do you think it's hard? I know food is often, disgusting in shows. They'll coat it with a bunch of non-edible stuff.
You're talking shit about food. What's up?
Well, no, in movies and stuff, it'll be, coated in shoe polish or just be, fake or, it's absolutely... You'd never want to eat anything you see in food unless the actors are also eating it, but even then...
Even then, they probably had to spit it out afterwards.
Do you think Pike is actually cooking in the studios just smell amazing, and it's just hard for everyone to do these scenes? They get so hungry. But yeah, I really don't think I have too much to say about this relationship. It might say it's a little strange that Pike never mentioned they weren't going to bring technology until they were landed and about to leave. I feel like you could maybe say that here. Maybe you should, and so people can interject and be like, Captain, I'm not comfortable with this mission anymore. But that was a minor gripe. Going through... Yeah, Ortega's cut his hair. Someone was saying they were going to cut their hair And now they have, so well done. I completely disagree that it's a more masculine cut, but it's probably just going to take some getting used to. It's like starting season 1 of TNG and then going, everybody looks wrong. You're wrong, that's the wrong color. Worf, what kind of forehead is that? You know, that's what it is. When I was like 3 years old, my trauma woke me up and I had a box of stuff to not forget. That I honestly don't know what to say to that. But yeah, I liked it was a little detail. The box this guy had, one of the first things that fell out was a Starfleet medical kit, which is the kit that M'Benga then uses. Which I'm glad they didn't throw that in our face. But yeah, they did explain that. Shuttle, of course, probably a little too big. I wonder if these shuttles are TARDISes. Like if the physical set is bigger than the outside of the shuttle. Because I don't know, it's probably right. I mean, that's something we can definitely do nowadays. But we could also definitely have done it for Delta Flyers, but we failed to do it then. Going through, yeah, I don't think this is going to be too much to say scene by scene. I think this episode also had, it didn't explore it. It didn't answer it in any way. Well, it briefly did explore it when Pike said, like, Rigel 7 doesn't change people, it shows you who you really are. Where, of course, the culture in Rigel 7 we know is pretty violent, pretty militant. Probably not too dissimilar from actual Bronze Age civilizations. But this guy, you know, we don't want humanity to be bad. We don't want, or at least I don't. We don't want people, Starfleet officers, to shy away from Starfleet. And this guy very much has. He's gone to the dark side, so to say. He doesn't seem to care too much about the morality of a lot of his actions. I mean, this is a very divided society. This is a society with, you know, the prison sentence is putting them outside in a cage that was supposed to freeze you to death, but then it didn't when they were in prison. And the actor very much plays the character like he's kind of deranged. He's a little crazy. That's how the actor chose to portray the character. And so, watching this episode, there were a lot of times I kind of wanted to go, like, well, maybe this radiation makes you a bit more violent as well. Maybe, like, it's not that the people are bad, it's that the radiation is affecting them. Which, I mean, it could be true. This is a fictitious radiation, but it's something I had to kind of fight against. And also was, again, just interesting to explore, like, without any sort of memory beyond the past day. You'd lose all that Starfleet training. There would presumably be some things that you believe in so morally hard they would count as, like, those core emotions. Not many, but, like, well, is morality explicit as opposed to something you implicitly know? And it has to be taught to a certain extent, surely, because, you know, different cultures have certain disagreements on what's moral. We burn our dead. There are plenty of cultures on Earth that you just wouldn't do that. Heck, there were our own cultures in the past probably wouldn't have done that. But I don't really like Pike's thing of it shows you who you really are, and that Pike would, like, beat someone to death for their memories. Like that seemed to be the conclusion the episode was making, is that Pike is some, like, very violent man who reacts on, like, core base instincts. If we're saying that the person Pike really is was the person kind of right here at the end of the episode. So I think that was maybe a little too heavily done, but again, it was just some very interesting stuff to chew on. Jaxlaw, to tell you how this episode spoke to me directly, I would have to talk about stuff personal to me. Yep, that's fine. I can't say that I personally relate to this episode. For me, it was, just philosophically interesting. I did think for a moment, like, I liked as well, the casket in the myth is, like, this guy actually does have a casket, the little Starfleet box. I thought as well that the tricorder, he was potentially just recording his things, so it was like his like recording logs, whatever, so they actually weren't retaining their memories, but like the box held them because he was recording them. But no, of course, the palace protects them. I think that was my assumption going in, that like the palace protects them. But yeah, God, where was I in my scene by scene? I think we're about here. It's a weird mix of the point where people and go seek medical attention is like right on the line where it is. What is that? Sorry. I have never heard this noise before in my life, but something is ringing. It's done. I have no idea what that was. Give me a few minutes. Let me see if I can deal with this. It's very difficult to track something down when you are deaf in one ear. But we got it. We got it. Oh yeah, it was right on the line of you should tell someone about your medical problems sooner, and you told them right away. Like, I guess Una's disoriented, but if I was like, if 2 hours went by instantaneously, the first thing I would say is I've just lost 2 hours. And it's always like, people in TV shows never do. Modern Star Trek is in general pretty good at it. But it still skirts that line right away. The very first thing I would do is say like, hey, this seems like a serious problem. I don't want to die. Can someone fix it? Just VK, howdy y'all. This episode's like a Rorschach test. It's kind of catchy. I want to get up and dance. Oh, the beeping, yeah. Someone was trying to find their phone, which had gotten left in this room. Don't think there's too much to say. I do kind of like how weak like Mbenga's sawing and how little work is kind of actually being done. I mean, Pike and Leon are going to town with their hammers after presumably having to do several takes. But I just like, there's the scene where they glance over at Mbenga and he's like, and that's how he's cutting the wood. This one, I mean, actually, they did take her to sick day. I was gonna say this one, like, especially Una should have a lot faster been like, Spock, you're in charge now, bye. Like, she's literally having the problem explained to her as she's experiencing the problem. I'd be like, look, Spock, you're in charge. But anyway. It's a weird thing. Star Trek, I think, in general, does this where captains are extraordinarily resistant to giving up command because of medical issue. I don't think anyone has voluntarily done it. I think There have been cases where captains have worked until they literally can't speak, and then the first officer has had to take charge. I don't think a captain has really even the one dog in a dog suit where Kurt gets split into two people and he's like super indecisive. He doesn't even have the decisiveness to give Spock command, even though he asks Spock like to do everything. And I've always felt like if I was in command, like, the reason is they're responsible for everyone's lives. I'm like, exactly. That's why you put someone who's not sick in charge of all of the, like, everyone's lives. You're not capable of doing this. And you should know that. But it's not really a problem here so much, because I don't think anyone super fought it. But it's somewhat relevant. Why didn't Una heal herself? Well, no, Una has, like, a boosted immune system, but the radiation was blocking neurotransmitters. So, first off, it's radiation, meaning the immune system can't do anything. Radiation isn't something physical you can fight, and I don't think the immune system is going to be responsible for repairing cell damage if it's causing cell damage, which I imagine it is not, given how the effects seem reversible. How does radiation block neurotransmitters? I don't know. It just does. But it's just not something the immune system would deal with. I also don't think Una's immune system isn't conscious. It's autonomic, because when her leg was broken as a child, she couldn't just turn it off. And if she could, that would fix her problem. Which reminds me, by the way, in the court case episode, was there a reason given why Mbenga doesn't know Una's Illyrian? Because I feel like it probably was said at, like, season 1 or some point, but how did, like, any medical officer should just know the moment they see her, surely. Because she looks human, but her DNA sure isn't. Also, while we're at it, let's do some other previous episodes. I saw an interview with the showrunner why they pushed the Khan stuff back like 20, 30 years. And the explanation given was that he wanted Star Trek to be in the future, and with the eugenics wars in the 90s, that couldn't be our timeline, which I knew was going to be the reason, but actually hearing it, I'm like, why? Because first off, you've pushed it forward to, like, now, so it's still not in our future. Like, that bridge either doesn't exist or isn't going to be blown up. You have Picard, which takes place last year and is still unfathomably more advanced than us. And then you have, like, a million other things I could throw at you from the classics as to why Star Trek isn't actually our current timeline. And I was like, oh, why? That really bothered me. But was there anything else I wanted to say about previous episodes? Yes, but I've probably forgotten them. Moving forward. More broadly, I hope this isn't Ortega's episode, because, for one, she doesn't have her memory. Did you hear that? I've automatically called Ortega's a he, like 10 minutes ago, and now Ortega's is a she. Just automatically. God, I want that. But, I hope this wasn't Ortega's episode, because, of course, we still haven't really had one for them. This didn't feel like it, and, they didn't have their memories for, like, half the episode, which you could do a great character study of someone without their memory, like, without their memories and just kind of their emotions and how they would react. I don't think this was it. But if this was Ortega's episode, it suggests we're not gonna get one for a little while. And, like, they're not Travis. I've said that, but I think I know more about Travis and his life than I do Ortega's. The difference is Ortega's is more, like, reactive and more of a character in the personality sense, not the fact that they're literally a TV show character. So maybe, like, I don't know, Travis might actually be above Ortega's in terms of development. Sure, Travis has twice as many seasons, but it's Travis. Like, I don't know. I just, I like that you've made me care about Leon. You know, you've given her an episode that really boosted her to someone I actually care about. And, Ortega's, I still feel like I don't. And all I really have with is she's too cocky and unprofessional when, like, everybody's lives are in danger and directly in her hands. And that detracts from the stakes in the show, which means she's a character I don't really like. God, why? Why do I do this? It is a... Never mind. Moving forward. Yeah, not too much here. We talked about that scene already. Thinking about it, I am actually kind of amazed the Enterprise could go unpiloted for so long, considering how many major rocks you can just bump into. Like, rocks far bigger than the Enterprise. But, yeah, going forward, I'm willing... Oh, that's a future scene. Never mind. Not too much, because this is all random stuff. Yeah, if I have a complaint, especially knowing that the asteroids were the cause of the radiation, I was like, I'm willing to let it pass that Ortegas can do some of the things they're doing, especially like that phaser maneuver they did, which would, I mean, Nurse Chapel said it herself. I could heal a simple wound, but I couldn't perform surgery. Ortega's just performed surgery on a rock. And I was like, well, you know, if the asteroids are shielding them a bit from the radiation, but not totally, I'd be like, yeah, you know, he can pilot the ship a little better. But I don't know. If reading is apparently an explicit skill, then how was that spinny phaser thing an implicit skill? That's still game. Reading is like, other than speech, like how is speech implicit but reading apparently isn't? Other than speech, reading is probably like the first example I would give as an example of an implicit skill. The reason it bothers me so much is that the writers included the scene where they wrote things down on the tablets. If you didn't have that scene, you wouldn't have this problem. Sure, people might complain, why didn't they write stuff down? I thought about this earlier, and then I saw people's tattoos, and I went, oh, I guess they are writing stuff down. But, like, it could be something that affects implicit reading, implicit skills, and reading. Maybe this civilization hasn't invented reading? Well, no, because this building records the past. They have written language because this building is able to record the past. Unless you're telling me it's oral, or maybe it's through the totems. Okay. Like, yeah, the planet just might not have writing. I'll accept that. But, like... You have a scene at the end where, like, you know, Pike comes up and he's like, if I were you, I probably would have just written stuff down. And then you could have some comedy line about how, you know, hindsight is 20/20 and Spock just didn't think about that. Like, that you created a problem by trying to solve a... I don't know. I said we weren't going to talk about this too long. Because it's not the focus of the episode. It's just, God, was it... I couldn't get it out of my head. Like, how is reading? Like, what? Up on the bridge. Yeah, everyone's memories are good. Yeah, here's the solution. We're way back into, like, TOS territory of, damn the consequences, I think this is right, so I'm gonna do it. Like, everybody knows that Pike's reasoning why this doesn't violate the Prime Directive is BS. He just wants to do it. Well, no, that's unfair. He thinks it's right. He genuinely does. But, he's just gonna he's gonna change the millennia-long status quo on this planet and then leave. Be like, bye. In this episode, they took the ruler of this, we'll call it a civilization. He then removed the thing that was, like, causing the forgetting, and then he left. So from the perspective of anybody on this planet, especially people who aren't part of this one, like, civilization, a major world leader died. The forgetting, which had been something forever, that literally the gods had decided that the forgetting was going to be a thing, had stopped. You could make a religion out of that. Like, I don't know, you could maybe have some great schism, some sort of, like, Judaism and Christianity, like, you know, the removal of the forgetting is, like, maybe the ruler ascended and became a god and decided no more forgetting. Like, I don't know, like, obviously this has this is the definition of drastic consequences. Like, and as I was saying, I spent a lot of this episode going, you know, there might be merits to this. Like, you know, there was also the option of just leaving the tower, and so people can choose whether or not they want to have their memories. It is an opt-out system. If you leave the tower, you would have forgotten again. But no, he forced the memories and everything, which would have drastic consequences. Like, this planet's now going to have loads of people like our main guy who are in despair because of something that happened. I can't even begin to imagine. There are going to be people who are waking up realizing that they've literally spent their entire life of 80 years doing the same thing, smashing a big rock with a hammer day in and day out. Like, is there going to be revolt? Like, is there going to be a revolution? It's the lower deck scene where they go to the planet where Picard's site decided that, you know, he didn't give them the drugs, the Felicium, and so the planet went into massive withdrawals, and they're like, here's the history of our world. We have the time where we were all, like, dependent on the drug and poor, and then here's the nightmare times of the years of chaos and disorder, where it's just, like, shadowy figures and demons from hell, and he's like, where our entire society collapsed. It's like, yeah, it's TOS. I mean, if you want to make a modern TOS, you gotta do it. But, here's an episode for Lower Decks to come back to and be like, no, the planet's just dead now. Rigel 7. You know what? Rigel is something that comes up a lot, isn't it? Because it's a nearby star. Star Trek Memory Alpha, right? And I feel like maybe it's just because it's been in this episode, but I feel like it's one that's cited a lot. Yes, TNG Remastered. Remastered? Rigel 7 is the inhabited 7th planet of the Rigel system. This Class M world was home to the Kalar, a pre-warp human civilization species. It was orbited by a single moon. In the debris field, the Rigel 7 Lagrange colony was associated with the planet, which, just based off the name Lagrange point, it's going to be in a Lagrange point. It's going to be in a Lagrange point around the planet, yes, which I think means it could potentially be on, like, the other side of the orbit. Give me the diagram. Or is it... There are 4 Lagrange points. The problem is I can't remember what the Earth-Moon Lagrange points are and the Sun ones. Sorry, there are 5. Yeah. So that's a space station. They haven't colonized it, which I was going to say, if they built a colony, I'm going to go ahead and say this species clearly went extinct. Among the Lotus Eaters. The cage, the menagerie. Yep. Oh, here we go. Hang on. Illusion of a Fortress. Yeah, this is the episode that's from, like, TOS. That's 2 moons for a start, but and that's a bunch of water. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. It's just a different palace. Among the Lotus Eaters. Final Frontier. There was a song called Moon Over Rigel 7. The Chase. The 24th century Robert Blackman was born on this non-Federation planet Interesting. Are you human? Federation Starfleet Lieutenant. We don't know. In the 2360s, Koblyad Fugitive. Oh, that's an alien. That's Deep Space Nine. Use a subspace shunt to access and purge everything in the active memory of the computer system. So they're aliens on Rigel 7 into like 100 years from now. Ooh, a view of the surface of Rigel 7 was depicted on several view screens on Deep Space Nine's Promenade. Oh, that's just the frame from the cage. Interesting use of old art. The Enterprise D once conducted a mission to Rigel 7, during which the crew believed their communicators were compromised, leading them to develop the Myriad encryption code. Oh, this is from Picard. Yeah, this is the code from Picard. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to look for evidence that this event directly led to the extinction of the primary species on Rigel 7. And I feel like there's no definitive answer. Like, the consequences of this action, because we also have to remember TOS would have some, like, pre-warp civilizations in the Federation, and they would make contact. I mean, that planet knew about Starfleet. It's possible that warranted Federation intervention, despite the Prime Directive. So that's why aliens and stuff are coming here. But if the Enterprise D was on a mission, that suggests that they're not supposed to know about the Federation. Because why would you send the Enterprise on a mission where losing compromised communicators? No, so if the communications are compromised, that suggests that either Rigel 7 is advanced enough to, like, be spying on them, or a power advanced enough. Or, like, someone else has come, like a private little war. I don't know. I feel like the Bronze civilization went extinct and someone else colonized this world because Pike removed the meteor. Procedural memory, like how to ride a bike, is the last type of memory loss people experience. Declarative memory, facts, thank you. That's the term I've been forgetting. Is first to go, which why people typically can't remember their names. Yep. The Stranger World Palace does have the spires that stick up, similar to the TOS one. Yeah, but the Stranger Worlds one is a big black spire. The TOS one is like a vaguely Byzantine thing on a lake. They're very different. And the aliens also have that Mongolian vibe, like the TOS Rigelians. That's true. I think I mentioned this in my trailer analysis. Like, there are two facets to Strange New Worlds. I probably would have been happy with both, where either they go with the more alien-looking aliens, or they stick to what we see in the 23rd century. And for the most part, I think Strange New Worlds does a very good job, like, you know, they have a lot more aliens that are just humans in different costumes. Or, like, like, this species is just Mongolia. But, yeah, I mean, it helps tie it in to that kind of, you know, you're watching a modern TOS. But, yeah, I choose to believe that Pike's actions caused the direct extinction of all life on this planet. Because, oh, hang on. Rigel 2, Rigel 3, Rigel 4, Rigel 5, Rigel 6, Rigel 10, Rigel 12 are all memory alpha pages. Oh my god, Rigel 2 is the planet from Shore Leave, right? Rigel 3 is... Okay, when did you lose me? Where did you lose me? Can someone tell me where you lost me? Because I don't know when that happened. I just noticed that OBS had an error occurred. But I was going through the history of the Rigel system. It's quite fascinating. Where did you lose me? Rigel 2, 3, 5, which Rigel were we at? I have to wait for you guys to catch up, because I don't know what you're missing. We're going through! We'll just keep going. Rigel 5 is an inhabited system. The people look like that, presumably the Rigelians. Rigel 10 is also inhabited. It was affiliated with the Federation by the 22nd century. So in this episode of Strange New Worlds, there is a planet affiliated with the Federation in the Rigel system. So I suppose maybe that's how we get such nice looking pixels. But in case you missed it, Rigel 2 is inhabited. It's the Shoreleaf planet. Rigel 3 was also inhabited. Rigel 6 was also inhabited. We are on Rigel 7. It is inhabited. And Rigel 10 is inhabited. The only planet we know about that is not inhabited in the Rigel system is Rigel 4, which is, I'd like to point out, these are all inhabited by different species. God, can we get an episode exploring that? Like, okay, now it might make sense why, like, good lord. That's a busy system. Okay. Dang. I really hope you heard most of that Rigel stuff, but that's why we record these. Moving forward, yeah, again, I don't feel as invested in this relationship as they want me to. Because I also know that it doesn't work out. Like, I know that Pike ends up with that lady on Talos 4. I also know that, like, 2 years ago, Pike still seemed into her, like in Discovery, which I think was 3-4 years ago, maybe. This could be a new thing, don't get me wrong. But I know this doesn't work out, or even worse, it does work out, and Pike decides, nah, I can't be with her now that I'm in a wheelchair, I'm gonna go to Talos. So, yeah, I mean, at the same time, I know how Pike's story... Well, I guess that's the thing. Knowing where Pike ends up doesn't change any of the, like, stories now. It just means Pike can never die, which, to be fair, he probably couldn't die anyway, being the main character. But this storyline specifically, I feel they're not doing enough for me to keep invested in it, and I already know how it ends. So I'm not... It's, like... I don't know. I thought this might actually be, like, maybe they do break up here, because they have to end... breaking up. Maybe they're saving her to kill. Like, they're like, maybe one day we'll want an episode where Pike's, like, in a dark place and we can kill his girlfriend. Like, actually, I might guess that that's what they're doing. But, we'll see. And yeah, I think then, I was like, oh, we've only been live for 4 minutes. That might be the end of what I have to say about this episode. I'm noticing, again, Strange New Worlds is generally not a whole lot to say. Just, it's kind of doing things well, but in a way that's not particularly interesting. If that makes sense. Like, it's interesting to watch, but it's not noteworthy well. It's like, yeah, this was just a really well put together thing. If I was teaching a class on cinematography, I could probably talk a lot more about why, but that's not really why we're here. But I'm very happy to see that its average has gone up in season 2. We're reliably hitting this baseline is why I want to call it, like, much below this we'd start getting into bad episodes, but it's a solid baseline that's enjoyable to watch. And a lot of the problems I had with season 1 are either totally absent or very diminished. And so it really seems like, even though they kept saying, like, we're just gonna do the same thing, we're just gonna do season 1 again. And even though I saw the article where the showrunner was like, we're going to darker places, we hinted at that Gorn conflict, which honestly I kind of hope is just episode 10. Maybe like a little thing in the middle, but I'm glad we're staying away from that for now. Like, yeah, it seems they really did do what every show should do, is between seasons, like, right, what worked, what didn't, how do we make season 2 even better? So, that's honestly, that's the main thing I wanted from season 2 of Strange New Worlds. So I'm very happy we're getting it. I'm gonna check what do we get next week. Whoops. Star Trek Strange New Worlds Memory Alpha. Charades or charades, depending on where you are. But given you're watching the stream right now, you're either unemployed, skipping worth, or pronounce it charades. So we're gonna go with charades. There's literally nothing on the Memory Alpha page. I like how it says this page may contain spoilers for Stranger Worlds, and it's literally an empty page. It is the 888th episode of Star Trek, though, according to Memory Alpha, so we're getting up. We'll probably hit 900 before the series, the Paramount dies. It's fascinating how quickly the cancellation of Prodigy changed my views on Paramount. Like, 1 week, I was like, Paramount is safe for the foreseeable, for, like, a good number of years, because Prodigy hasn't been canceled, and Prodigy's second season is releasing this year, so we're good. And then they canceled the season in active development, and I went, right, things are critical, and I think any new season we get would be lucky. Like, it's amazing how quickly, it's now not like an if but when Paramount suddenly stops and the Star Trek suddenly stop. It's a fascinating, I mean, I guess in, like, the streaming world today, it's a heavy burden, but we've seen shows like Futurama and, well, The Orville, just move to a new streaming service. Paramount would have to, like, and CBS as well, would have to, like, completely dissolve as companies, or they'd have to sell the rights to the franchise for it to happen. Because this is a franchise. This isn't just, like, a one-off. I suppose it's possible that someone else could just pick up a lot of these same shows with Secret Hideout, or someone else, but we'll see. For now, we got new Star Trek. It's just amazing how quickly, like, if they had canceled Prodigy, that would have been one thing. It'd be like, oh, okay, maybe, you know, the things are starting to hit them. But the fact that they canceled it while it was almost done and already announced and slated for later this year, I was like, oh. I see. But also, if you haven't heard, the people who make Prodigy, who know a whole lot more about the industry than presumably any of us, certainly me, they've apparently done some early talks to give it to some other networks, and they've all been very promising. Even before those, like Aaron, the guy who I would often cite, was very hopeful. Like, it's very clear, like, nothing is guaranteed, but he was actually a lot more hopeful than I was in the original scene, in my original stream, because it's almost done, because it's an established IP, because it's Star Trek, and so many reasons. Like, a season 3, I don't know, that always seems a bit unlikely to me, just for rights alone. But yeah, hopefully we get it, and hopefully we get the physical media. Or at very least, some legal way to download it. But yeah, I think then, without further ado, I will call it here. So, thank you all for watching. Oh, next week, we will be back to noon, Saturdays at noon PST, the normal time, unless something very sudden comes up. But this was the last week of a weird time. I'm glad so many people could join me, because it is a very bad time for the Americas, my core audience. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.